March 2017, um, I was in my second semester of grad school, getting my MFA in acting. I had just maybe like 2 or 3 months before gone through the end of a decade long relationship, and my dad had passed away. Just like maybe 2 months before we started talking and working together, he died of Alzheimer's, and I had been taking care, one of his primary caregivers, along with my stepmom, for like a year and a half. He'd been sick for many years, and I moved home to help. And so he had passed away. I was dealing with that. My biological mom, passed away when I was 4. So I really felt like the trauma, the unresolved trauma of that, because how can you resolve it when you're 4, came back when I lost my dad. So I was dealing with these 2 losses, the stress of grad school, the frustration and pain of the end of this relationship. I was working part-time, and what I learned after that one call, like this has stuck with me forever, but after our first call together, what I learned was all of that stuff was tangled, and I couldn't process any of it because it was just all together. And so when I tried to work on one thing, I was in therapy and I started taking antidepressants, and I just couldn't get through anything because it was all just like this.
Yeah. Oh my
So it
goodness.
was heavy.
Yeah. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And that is such a clear description, just that idea of all of it being tangled, right? And thank you for sharing this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that happens a lot. And I describe that a lot of times. It's like, when you have a necklace that has got,
Yes.
yes, it's happened. Like a necklace that's gotten tangled, and especially if the chain is kind of thin and you're trying to unknot it. And it's like, sometimes it legitimately feels like it's going to be impossible. And
Yeah.
I think that sometimes that is the emotional experience that we're having, and it is hard to work through anything, because like with that necklace, it's like if you're not kind of pulling in just the right spot, it's getting more
Yes.
knotted.
Sometimes you have to get a tool, like a little needle or something. And yeah,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
totally.
Yes.
That's how I was. And what's crazy is I didn't know that before we started working together. I had no idea. I thought I dealt with all that. Like I was fine. I went to school the next day and started rehearsal for a new play after my dad died. And everyone was like, Hallie, why are you here? Why are you here? And I was just like, life goes on. Like that was my response. Like insensitive to everyone around me and to myself.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
just like,
Whoa.
so, oh my gosh, then our mutual friend Jessie, who you had on last week, she,
Yes, who I think is watching, by the way. She
hey
said, "Yay,
Jessica,
beautiful friends."
yes,
Go ahead.
shout out. She, I'll never forget this. I was sitting waiting for an Alexander lesson,
Mhm.
and she texted me a screenshot of an email that you had sent out to your clients
Mm.
that was like a special, like a one-on-one special. And she said, I think you'd really benefit from this right now, because she knew I was struggling. I knew I was struggling, but I didn't know how.
Yeah.
And I was at a point where I was in therapy, I was taking medication, I had an appointment for a psychic. I was like, anything to make me feel better. I will
Yeah.
do anything. And I didn't even know if what Reiki was. I didn't know if I bought into it.
Mhm.
I didn't know anything about energy healing. Um, but I really was like anything to make me feel better. Um, and so I think I emailed you that day or like whatever I was supposed to do. And
Mhm.
yeah, it's changed my life.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yes, I was actually looking back at that first email, because I was just like, when was this? When did we start working together? Oh my goodness. And yeah, it was all of those things that you just described were what you were going through. Plus, you had to put your dog down. I was just like
Oh my
I was looking
gosh.
at this email like today and I was like, whoa, this girl, you are so resilient. You
Thank
truly
you.
are. You truly are. And what's amazing is that you have moved through so much. I mean, just so much in general, and also so much loss that some you might knock some people down kind of like for the rest of their lives, to be honest, because
Yeah.
if it is not moved through and dealt with, it can, understandably so, it's a lot to handle.
Yeah.
And you have moved through that and just sort of like emerged and blossomed and flourished in this beautiful way. Like you do not even feel like a weighted person, you know? And it's just incredible. I am just super proud of you.
Thank you.
So I would love to hear what kind of were the shifts, maybe the mindset shifts or perspective shifts or something, like what shifted for you that allowed you to kind of start to untangle that thing and to start to feel better and to be able to move through all
Yeah.
of that.
Um, One of the biggest things was realizing from our work together, from things I read,
Mhm.
um, that I am in control of me and I can control my energy. So often in my life, and I think I've always been a positive, upbeat person, but so many times in my life, I made myself the victim or felt like I was the victim and I was being done to. And why is this happening to me? And when I started working with you, you know, I was in this time where I was constantly surrounded by people because I was working, I was doing shows, I was in grad school. You know, I was living with my mom, my stepmom, and I just felt like everyone was in my space and everyone was controlling what I did and how I felt. And the biggest thing for me was realizing that no, I'm doing that. I can control that and I can protect my energy. And then, you know, finding out what that meant and looked like for me, which was doing things for myself and
Mm.
taking time for myself. Um, Simple things like that that sound like common sense. And you've said things to me before when we have our sessions, and you're like, does that make sense? And I'm like, yes, it makes so much sense. It's common sense. Why didn't I think of this? Why didn't I do this? But sometimes we need help navigating, you know.
Yeah, sometimes when we're kind of stuck in our own stuff, it's like there are blinders and things that we actually know somewhere inside of us, we just kind of forget or we stop engaging with or we lose access to.
Yeah.
And it's just helpful sometimes to have that outside set of eyes to be like, hey, hello, can I help you take care of you?
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
So what are some of the things, what are some of those simple things that you found to do to take care of yourself, to
well, so one thing to note about me is I don't know if you believe in Enneagrams, but I'm a 2, so I'm the helper. I'm
mm,
a I'm a caregiver, like literally and emotionally. I want to take care of everybody. And so I started to recognize I was doing that as like a coping mechanism,
mm,
not work on me. And, and so things that I started to do was simply like, I'm looking at my door right now. I'm in my room at home in my stepmom's house and it's closed. And that never happened. Mostly out of when I was helping with my dad, the door needed to be open so I could hear if something happened in the middle of the night, which happened a lot. And I never shut the door because I felt like that was selfish. And um you know, it was like anything I did for myself had to be done on this like tight schedule,
mm,
and I was really rigid. And so what I started to do was shut the door,
mm.
take a bath, simple things like that, that really started to, because I'm an introvert, re-energize and reinvigorate me. And I started running, which is just amazing. I love it. It's not for everybody, but for me, it really helps to just feel like I'm doing something for myself and clear my mind and get activity, but yeah.
Yeah. Hallie, that is so powerful. I mean, my goodness, that like simple act of shutting the door. I was literally getting chills as you were talking about that. And I mean, it's really interesting because that's like a physical manifestation, but I think there's also sort of a metaphorical and an energetic shutting the door that I think that you started to do sometimes. And it's not like you shut out everything from your life. It's
Yeah.
just the closing of the door in this case is really like, okay, how do I get back to myself? How do I give myself what I need before kind of connecting with everyone else and trying to help
Yeah.
everyone else? And that is just the perfect image, because I think I have seen you, Hallie, do that in, I mean, I feel like that has been applied to your life in layers and layers and layers over the years, just different and new ways of going, okay, how do I sort of like, whoop, okay, here's what's going on out there. I am very affected by this, because you are super affected by other people's energies, and I get it because so am I, right? And so it's really easy to then get yourself tangled into other people's energies and other people's stuff and think that it's their behavior that is causing you to feel that way. And maybe maybe a reaction, you are having a reaction to something that someone is doing, but really, like, nobody's behavior can actually make you anything,
Yeah.
right?
This is so funny. I wonder if Grant is watching, my partner, because the other day he did something and I was like, well, you made me feel stupid for doing that. He's like, Hallie, I can't make you feel anything. And I was like, well, can you make me feel, like, to circle back like hours later? I was like, hey, just circling back, like, can you make me happy? And he's like, what is this in regards to? And I was like, but anyway, we had that conversation where it's like,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, right. And of course, this is not to say like, and I mean, I know this is not about you and Grant. You and Grant, great. I am a champion of that relationship. I like it. I love it. You're very happy in there. But this is not to say that if you have people in your life that like you're around them and you continuously feel terrible and drained and not seen or heard, like, in a way that is destructive, then okay, you might need to make a choice to maybe like separate yourself from that person or something like that. So I'm not saying that other people cannot impact your experience. I'm just saying that nobody is in control. No one is in control. Back to exactly what you were saying from the
Yeah.
beginning. No one's in control of your experience. There's always something that we can do for ourselves to feel better, like, to just put it simply, to feel better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I love that. Yeah. And this is just what's coming up in my head right now. This is sort of on a little bit of another note, but just related to your dad. I remember that I think part of what allowed you to, like, there was like a letting go that happened, not a letting go of that relationship
Yeah.
or that love by any means. If anything, I think it actually brought that closer to you.
Yeah.
But I just remember it was like something happened. And I'm curious if you remember like what that experience was inside of you, but I remember it's like you became free to continue your life.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm now like having this flash of that, of like the exact conversation. And I can't remember what it was, but I had been holding on. Like, if I let go, that meant I didn't love him or whatever. Um, yeah. And that conversation, you said, don't you think this is what he would want for you? And it was like, well, yes. Yes. So Yeah, I can't remember the specific of, but it was something like that.
Yeah.
And it had also been, I had been holding on to a lot of resentment to my siblings who did not make the sacrifices that I had made, which wouldn't have worked for them. They had families
True.
and children and full-time jobs. And but I was resentful of that. And I think somewhere in that same like conversation, I was able to let go of that too. And what's really cool about that and about the shutting the door is that makes me so much more alive
Mm.
and so much more myself when I am around other people and able to embrace them, as opposed to how I was living, which was like um just like a little shut off and like really sharp with people. And I knew I was being like that, but I didn't know how to not be like that. And the work that we've done together and the work that I've done outside of our sessions because of the work that we have done together has just has allowed me to take to notice when I do that, because I'm not perfect. I'm not, I still
None
have
of us
those
are.
moments. Yeah, I still have those moments where it's like I'm being sharp or I snap at Vicky, my stepmom, or I shut down. But now I recognize that and I can say, oh, let me go shut the door for a second. You know, that's going to be my new thing. I need to shut the door
Yeah.
just for a moment.
Yes, I love that. I mean, and that, you know what? It's really funny because that's something that can be done even if there is not a physical door. Like
Yeah.
if you're in
Oh,
a
yeah.
space and you're recognized, like, I just need to shut the door. And that's what is that? It's like, okay, maybe I need to take some breaths. Maybe I need to like step outside for a second. Maybe I need to like just maybe if I'm in a group of people, maybe I need to like go to the bathroom real quick and breathe,
Yes.
or like go get a drink of water, like shut the door.
Yes.
Even momentarily. Yeah, yeah, that's super powerful, Hallie.